Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sylva Town Commissioners to order, and I apologize that our work session took as long as it did, but we will go ahead and start our regular meeting. The first thing we have to do is approve our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve it or amend it?
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Have a motion to approve our agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is approving the consent agenda, which is attached to your packet. Do I have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there any discussion? Then all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is a time for public comment. This is time for comments on anything that is not on our agenda. So if you're here for the community input on downtown restrooms, we will have time later. So do we have any public comment for any other reason? No, hearing none, we will move on. Time for our reports. For the mayor's report, all I have to say is that I attended the North Carolina League of Municipalities annual conference a little over 2 weeks ago, and it was very good. There were a lot of good sessions. Next, commissioner reports. Mary, I will start with you.
I just had one item. I wanted to remind everybody about the food drive that happens annually between Dillsborough River Company and United Christian Ministries on Sunday, May 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 10 cans of food will get you a raft trip. We'd love for you guys to show up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks for doing that. David.
Nothing.
Ben.
Which one locks it? The blue one? Left one.
Push the
Left.
lock.
Oh, that's the lock one. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Again, sorry that we went over a little bit on our budget meeting. But I just wanted to touch base. The reason I'm wearing a mask, and I've asked the commissioners to wear a mask, is because COVID cases are rising again. We are not seeing hospitalizations. There's nobody admitted to the hospital right now. But it is something that it is definitely in the community. I've known several people who've had it. Long COVID is definitely a real risk. Even if you're vaccinated, it's something that is definitely out there. It's really unpleasant to get COVID, even if it's a mild case. This is kind of the new norm where we're going to see cases go up, and it's just important to take precautions, and hopefully then the cases will go down. And this is kind of what happened 6 weeks ago or so in England. They started seeing cases go up again. It's like the Omicron, and eventually they just kind of petered out, which was great. Everyone just be careful out there and stay safe. Second thing is, we had a discussion about the shut-in in Black Rock trail project with the tribe. I went ahead and agreed that we've chosen Equinox, who's also doing the botanical study, to move forward with a master plan. There are two phases that they came back with. Phase one is basically kind of what we initially were asking for, which is really to get this set up. We'll make it available I think we can make it available on our website, their proposal, and I've sent it out to the other commissioners. Phase one is what we agreed on, and we're gonna move forward with that. And then phase two is just much more extensive. It's actually setting up contracts with the construction companies and that type of thing. That's something that we're gonna have to move forward with more of a grant-based, looking for funding for that rather than coming out of the town. So the phase one, we're going to go ahead and fund as we agreed upon from the Fisher Creek Fund. And then phase two, we'll move on from there, but we'll need phase one to get going first off. And just want to add, access is still a big issue, and the tribe is going to be working on that as well. How to get to the trailhead. I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Ben. Brett.
Not a whole lot tonight. Sorry I was late for the budget thing. My class has started, so I'm not the only person at Western teaching right now. So that's just a quick note on the skateboard ramp. I think we could definitely do that within the budget.
Madeline.
I have nothing to report.
All right, thank you, board. Next comes the manager's report.
Hey, everyone. Just have a few things I want to fill you in on. The Skyland Drive sidewalk unfortunately did not receive any bids. So NCDOT will rebid this in the upcoming months, and I'll keep you updated. Personnel updates. Cody Ruffhart started with the police department last week. He's from Burlington. This is his first job in law enforcement, so we want to welcome him to Sylva. We had our employee wellness fair this morning and had the highest participation we have had since I can remember. And so I want to thank Lynn Bryant for organizing that. And we have our open enrollment supplemental insurance this coming Tuesday at 7. And I want to thank Amanda for organizing that. I attended the Western North Carolina Managers with the regional budget roundtable last week. So it was really great and helpful to hear what managers from towns and counties in the region are facing with their budgets this cycle. Please remember our May 26th meeting is at 5:30 instead of a 9 a.m. meeting because we have the public hearing on the budget that night. And we'll be in touch about what to do with our June 23rd meeting, but that meeting either needs to be canceled or moved to the morning of June the 16th. We'll see what we have as far as items still going on, but with the budget passed, I think the only potential items we could have that we would need to meet about would be projects like Allen Street and the restroom, depending on where we are. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Now we will move on to our public hearing to gather community input on downtown public restroom locations and the adjacent open air areas. And I have the list where everyone signed in. And this is 3. I will do it in the order that everyone signed in, and you have 3 minutes to speak. So Mary and Garrett.
Just like to thank Byrne before we get started in compiling the feedback from the merchants who could not be there. Thank you.
Go ahead. And if you'll please state your name and go ahead.
I'm Marian Garrett. I am a homeowner and resident here in Sylva. I wanted to speak about the public restrooms. I am pleased that the public bathrooms in downtown are going to be placed, and that are going to allow more accessibility than the ones at Poteet Park or the Chamber of Commerce. I really do think it's a smart addition to town. My concern is the placement of the restrooms. I'm against the placement of the restrooms on Spring Street for several reasons. I think restrooms on Spring Street between Back Street and Main Street will put them as a focal point of town. I think that restrooms, regardless of how pretty of a building you put them in, just should not be a focal point of our downtown. In other local towns, restrooms are located on the outskirts of town and not the focal point of town. We can still keep restrooms accessible if the restrooms are placed at the old railroad depot. This location is about 50 feet away from the current proposed location on Spring Street. And there's ample room to put restrooms slightly out of sight, yet keep them accessible to both ends of town. Spring Street is currently closed to evaluate the use of Landis Street. I've already experienced multiple traffic jams where I was unable to turn right onto Back Street from Allen Street because of the traffic that was backed up mostly on a one-lane back street. Will we also be evaluating the traffic at the intersection of Allen, Back Street, and Spring Street? Will we also evaluate the traffic use of Spring Street? Also, the timing of the evaluation is questionable for me. We're evaluating traffic at a very low traffic time. Tourist season is just beginning. It really hasn't ramped up. Western is out of session. The First United Methodist Church classes are about to close. That's about 100 vehicles a day. Spring Street is the first left that you can take onto Main Street from Back Street. It's the first street to take if you're going around the block to find parking, and everybody knows that's a problem. Spring Street provides direct access from Back Street to multiple communities above Main Street, including my own. It gives direct access to city light. Is that my time?
Yes.
Finish, not finish, okay.
You have 30 seconds. That was someone's phone.
It gives direct access to City Lights bookstore and to the cafe on Spring Street, not to mention the additional parking of Jackson and East Jackson streets. I'd like to endorse the depot location. This location still allows for access from both east and the west end of walkable Main Street, and also would allow access from two sides of the bathroom, just like the current proposal says they want two-sided access. I'm adamantly opposed to the closing of Spring Street, whether for bathrooms or any other reason, especially when there are other suitable locations to accomplish our goals, such as the depot, that will not permanently impact traffic and community accessibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Carolyn Colvin.
My name is Carolyn Colton. Mine's going to be short and sweet. I do think we need restrooms in Sylva, but not at the expense of closing streets. I've been, there's times that it's really backed up now, the two streets. That's it.
Thank you. Leon Graber.
I guess I'll just concur with them. I'm concerned not only about the cost that we're talking for these restrooms and the location. I would certainly find the permission to look into that, maybe if there's an alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Hirsch.
I'm Jeffrey Hirsch. I live on corner of Schulman and Jackson Streets. And I've noticed since Spring Street was closed, a very strong increase in traffic right in front of, they will go all the way to the fountain and up Keener and then down Jackson rather than deal with some of the lights. And so that's been noticeable in the last week or so. Then posted a Facebook sketch of one possible proposed structure at the depot site, which I think is very attractive, very, very nice. It kind of gives that sense of the old train station or a train area, which we, could have someday, who knows? And Sylva's growing so much, I can't see closing streets. I think we need access for people. And I agree with a lot of the comments about the neighborhoods up above city lights and access that way. So I hope you reconsider Spring Street and take a hard look at the depot area. Thank you.
Thank you. I have, does anyone else that signed up wish to speak on this?
I think I would. I didn't check the box.
Okay.
If there's time. I'll just kind of mirror what everybody said and just give you
Speak your name.
Nicole Owen. I'm a business owner downtown and a resident in Sylva. And I own businesses on both ends of Main Street. And so I'm constantly commuting between both ends, whether walking or driving. And just this morning, upon making a left on, what's the street past Spring Street? Landis. A box truck was I was trying to turn left. I got in there and was out of the way, but the box truck was trying to come around me and turn left onto Mill Street. And I had my 2-year-old in the rear car seat right behind me. And this truck was inches from sideswiping my vehicle with my toddler in it. And I had this moment of like, this is an insane idea. There are other viable options that aren't going to cause traffic accidents and aren't going to look as bad. I agree with the looks of a bathroom right on Main Street. I just think we could do better than that. And I think we're a small town and we have very few cross points. And I think it's kind of insane to take one away. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I would like to make one. Oh, I know. My name is Jack Garrett. I live up above town there and own some properties up there. And one of the things that really occurs to me is how large of an elderly population we have. And then you have the dentist's office and you have the big churches all right there. And if an emergency was to occur, it's a lot further that the ambulance has to go, and it might cause some problems with the emergency services. And the increase in the population is going to mean what roads we do have are going to become more and more needed. And that's the two main points. And I also agree that the depot, and I also think that the design of it looking like a depot station is a great idea. And maybe even the terracotta roof.
Thank you. Then,
I had an email from the citizen.
okay,
Is that okay if I go ahead?
yes.
So I had an email sent from, can everyone hear me? Do I need the boxes?
No, we're good.
Okay, cool. So I had an email sent from a citizen and I think it's important for everyone to be heard. So I want to go ahead and share this. Citizen is Sarah LaRose. It says, I wanted to weigh in on the bathroom decision today. I live downtown on Hampton Street and have to drive through Mill Street and Main Street to get to and from my home nearly every time I leave the house. I've noticed since the start of the traffic study that getting through downtown has become noticeably difficult and frustrating. At first, I was a proponent of Spring Street, but now I've seen the effects firsthand as a person who lives downtown and think it is not a good idea for the flow of traffic. The change might seem small, but it's made a huge difference in my ability to leave the house and come home, let alone even drive through downtown on a day out. I heavily recommend Depot Street as the site of the new bathroom for this reason. Thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Can I throw in a comment from someone today too?
Yes.
Is that okay? I went to Melissa's Takeout today, which is going to be directly impacted by this. And she said, if you're going to close Spring, you might as well close Landis for problems that you just mentioned. Big trucks can't make those turns.
Yeah,
So it's same problem happens when they see one road closed, next road closed. That was her comment.
Thank you. Seeing no further people to make comments on this, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All right, any discussion? And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mayor, can you please raise your hand now that you have?
Now that we have our masks, I'm sorry. Yeah. No opposed. All right. Thank you all, and thank you for coming. I will say that the next item on our agenda is new business. It's just an update of some of the restroom plans that we had asked for from an architect.
So I think it's gonna have it'll be the depot. You're gonna talk about the depot location tonight?
Yeah, anything you want me to.
Okay, gotcha.
Stick around.
Yeah, if you wanna, yeah.
Gotta go.
All right, Odell, it's public restroom plan update.
Yeah, the concept.
Yes, concept.
I'm Odell Thompson. And the last meeting I was at, I said I would look at the depot site and see what was possible there. So I did, and I put together a couple of images that were based on the old depot that used to be there. And if you look at, if you look in Nick's book, you'll see this picture. And the important things to notice about the architecture of this is the big roof that overhangs around the whole building. The brackets, which are sort of a Victorian detail that's very common on depots. The brick wainscot or the brick base that comes up to about 3 feet, and everything above that is siding. So I took that as my palette of materials, and I came up, sorry, I don't have this up there, but I came up with a design that is the 2 bathrooms with a storage space between the 2 bathrooms. So there's 2 doors from the east and 2 doors from the west. And the building takes the example of the original depot. And I don't know if you all saw this. Got only 2 copies, I apologize, but so that's kind of the architectural response to, can we do it at the depot? Yes, we can. It'll fit there. Can we make it honor what was there architecturally? And I think we can. Obviously, it'll be smaller, but if people look at it, they'll say, oh, that looks like a depot. Oh, look, there's railroad tracks. So the design exercise came up with this, which I think is a viable option. Can this type of detailing also be used at the Spring Street location? Of course it can. This is the original concept I came up with. It hasn't been changed yet. We can make that concept whatever we want if that's the site that we end up with. So the other thing that I was thinking about, and Paige asked me, well, how much will this cost? And I said, I don't know. But our original guesstimate on on the Spring Street design was it could be as much as $400,000. And that's because we don't know what's under the road. And we know that we have to cut into it to create a patio on 2 different levels. And so there's a lot of site work involved. My guess, which is really just a guess, but it's somewhat educated, is that the depot lot has much less preparation because there's already a foundation there. So we'll probably save at least $100,000 going with the depot lot as opposed to the Spring Street lot. And that's a guess based on the fact that the site preparation is less. Now, the other thing that we have to consider is this property, the depot property, is owned by the railroad. It's not owned by the town. And we have to come to a decision if it's worth putting our money onto a piece of property that's not ours. So that's another, everything has a plus and a minus. And those are some of the criteria we need to use to make the best decision for the town.
Thank you very much.
Question? I ask,
Yeah.
is that,
Jeffrey.
may I answer a question? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Please.
I'm just wondering if has anyone initiated discussions with the railroad about this problem?
Yes.
And is there progress or is there positive?
Check.
Is that property in Dillsboro or is it in Sylva?
Sylva, just right down here.
Pardon?
It's right down here at the bottom. If you're on Spring Street and you come to the bottom,
Oh, okay.
it's right
Where
there.
the picnic tables are right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That discussion, to answer your question, the discussion with the railroad has been initiated and that they are willing to negotiate with us. I'm gonna, at the conclusion of Mr. Thompson's presentation, I'm gonna offer some facts about the the prospective location and the traffic study.
Did I hear you say that the depot space would be smaller than the space on the street?
No. And actually, we could make them identical in terms of square footage. Right now, they're just concepts. They're architectural concepts. The only difference between the two concepts that you see right now is the depot space is actually larger because I thought we might want a bigger storage space between the two bathrooms so that you could access the plumbing and that you could store tools and stuff. We could do the same thing on the Spring Street site. So for all practical purposes, the building is as large as we want it to be on both sides, if we can afford it.
I'm just thinking it makes really good sense to try the space at the depot because it's actually closer to where Silva holds a lot of events at Bridge Park and in the parking lot. I mean, we hold several large events in that specific area.
Yeah. There's pluses and minuses to everything. If you think of bringing up the mountains and most of the people on Main Street, the Spring Street location is more visible, more accessible.
Mhm.
So there, I mean, there's a plus and a minus to everything.
Right. Concerts in the creek, the fly fishing expo and other events that are held at Bridge Park offset that too. I understand.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, this isn't necessarily an event bathroom because events down there have a bathroom, the boutique park bathroom. This is also what we're looking for is a good location to meet everyday shoppers, tourists, locals downtown that need a restroom, right? I think we're covered on events, I feel like, but it definitely serves events better at the Depot Street, but right, that's what we're trying to weigh is this isn't necessarily an events bathroom. Okay, this is
It's the downtown.
it's a downtown bathroom,
Bathroom,
right? Yeah, and we have two main streets. And this one location is in between them and the other ones.
Another thing to think about as we, I've heard traffic study a couple of times is if the restrooms are at the depot, then we have to consider everybody coming from Main Street, getting to those restrooms has to deal with the traffic. Now that can be handled with flashing lights. It can be handled with different types of pavers in the street. Every time I cross there, the traffic is really very considerate and they always slow down for you. But it is something to think about.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm curious about so you potentially see us saving money on site prep. Yeah, with the 100K, which is very tempting.
Yeah.
What I'm curious is how much of that could get eaten up. So when you evaluated that site, accessibility to that site is going to be a big driver of cost, I feel like.
Right now,
Flashing lights alone are 50,000.
right now, it is technically accessible from the sidewalk. So that's already accessible. If we want to provide accessibility from the west end, then there's going to be some cost there. And if you just look at it, this structure is plus or minus 400 square feet. And I don't know if you know about cost per square foot, but let's just grab a number out of the air, which is probably too high. Let's say $500 a square foot. That's crazy. But these are little bathrooms and it's a lot of plumbing per square foot. So let's grab 500. That says the construction cost is 200,000. 400 square feet times $500 a square foot. But that's just the building. We have to imagine that we've got some site work to do all around this building. We're gonna have to have rails so people don't fall over toward the tracks. So it's not just $500 a square foot for the building. We need to think about the overall project.
Would it be feasible or ludicrous for every person that lives in Sylva to vote on this project?
That's not feasible.
Is that something?
Not really.
Why not?
There are legislative restrictions on what you can do a voter referendum for, and projects like this, I don't believe meet those requirements. They're usually like funding based, like whether you do a public, like a bond, issuing bonds for a project or stuff like that, right? I mean, I don't remember the full list, but pretty sure this would not be on that.
And most of this money was given to us by the state legislation to construct a bathroom downtown because of festivals that we have and stuff. So, and I will say, I think at some point there may be money where we can also construct another bathroom in the Bridge Park area. So we have many things we need to look at before we make our decisions.
Including what we talked about last time was the 400,000 is the bathroom and the area right around the bathroom.
Right.
If we want to redo the pavers on Main Street and the pavers on Mill Street to complete the project, that's above and beyond my guesstimate of 400 because
Removal of the rights.
yeah, where does it stop? Yeah. So anyway, we need to be aware that this could become a rolling stone.
What about water and sewer at both places? Are they both accessible?
They're both accessible. The challenge with Spring Street is we don't know what's right underneath yet, I guess. And you may know now.
Yeah, we know.
But the storm drain is my biggest concern. Where is it? What is it? If we dig this up to create a site for the bathrooms, are we going to be creating a need to redo the storm sewer all the way up Mill Street, up the hill? I don't know. Those are unknowns. That would not happen at the depot site. There may be less unknowns now because you may have discovered where they are and stuff like that, which is great. That's why we have to do that. At the depot, I don't know where the utilities are, but it was a building, so we know it had sewer and we know it had water. So even if they've been abandoned, we know we can reconnect. So.
Is there, what's the draw for Spring Street other than the proximity to Main Street? Because like I hear so many for the depot location, I'm just trying to figure out what all.
My biggest concern is that we spend all this money to put a restroom at the depot and it's at an inaccessible location. We know like accessing that lower area off Mill Street is difficult to get to. And yeah, my concern is that we build a bathroom that nobody uses because it's a very inconvenient spot to go to just to use the bathroom. And that's what I'm thinking. That's the reason initially I like the Spring Street location because it's very easily accessible from both Main Street and Mill. Now, that doesn't mean we can't make the Depot Street more accessible, but I think dealing with a railroad right there, the steep bank, I just think are just like how the Spring Street location could
bloom into
Right.
an imaginably large project, I feel like the Depot Street location also has that. And that's and accessibility is a necessity, right? Like we'll have to make those changes. I know you can get there now. It's not good enough. And immediately if there's a bathroom there now, it would be fraught with complaints about its accessibility. But the curb to curb design at Spring Street could be done in phases because the aesthetic additions and changes are not necessities. So I mean, that's one case for it.
I think one of the cases for Spring Street was to be accessible from Main Street where your customers are, that suddenly might need a restroom. Elderly people that we don't know if they can walk down the hill to Mill Street and across and over there if they're shopping on Main Street. That was our first thoughts is, or if you've got a child that suddenly needs to go to the bathroom, we wanted something that people that are at the festivals like Reading Up could come to, and that's why Spring Street was a first thought since one lane of it is already closed and sitting there doing nothing. So that was one of the reasons that we had said Spring Street instead of some other place. But there may be other places too, but that's why we're asking for this input.
And I just want to say, I mean, it's 120 feet from Main Street to where the bathroom would be. I've walked it. It's SYLVA, it's small. It's not that far. And if you're talking about accessibility and if it's that important, I mean, if you're a block away, if you're down at Landis in Maine, you're much further than you are. It's like, how far do you have to go to have a bathroom? Is my question. And then when you weigh that against the disruption of digging up Spring Street, the unknown costs. I mean, this sounds like just a nightmare to start digging into Spring Street. We've seen with the traffic study, it's been a week and it's already causing a lot of disruption. So I just want to say that I understand the wanting to have it close to Main Street. Those burning bushes can be torn out and you can have a big sign that says there's bathroom here. And so it'll be very easy to find. So I understand that argument. I just don't, if you weigh it against kind of the drawbacks of tearing up the road, I don't feel there's a real.
I agree with that, and I understand the argument to a certain extent, but also somebody that has to go to the bathroom isn't gonna be like, ooh, that one's too far, I'm just gonna hold it. Like, that's not an option. You have to go to the bathroom. And they're lucky to have an option so close by, I think.
And if it's a little kid or a pregnant person, we have lots of friendly, businesses downtown that I think would be more than happy to accommodate someone who's in dire need.
I'm glad to hear that the depot side is accessible, and I agree with you on that crosswalk. That is, you're going 20 miles an hour down Back Street if you're going at the safe speed. That is very easy when you walk out into that island to see a pedestrian, to slow down for the pedestrian. I think if the cost is going to be $100,000, then we need to think about accessibility from the other direction, which is another good point you made. From the bathroom to the bridge part. Right now, I remember the festival, I saw people walking their strollers down those railroad tie stairs. And that happens in both at the bottom of Landis and the bottom of Spring. So there has to be a way that we get people from the bridge park to downtown safely and accessibly. So
That occurs regardless of where the restrooms are. Same issue if the restrooms are on Spring Street.
yeah, but I'm saying that like this could be value added engineered so that there's an accessible ramp from this building to the bridge park.
That's right. Or somewhat accessible.
Okay.
Somewhat accessible.
How, wait, How?
Wait.
from the depot location to Bridge Park, crossing the railroad tracks, there's gonna be a ramp. Explain that.
I am not an architect. I don't.
There's not-
I do not
You'd
know
have
the
to go
answer to
down,
that, but
you'd
I
have to
do
go down
know
to the
that it
road.
gets done.
Okay, can I just let Mary have the floor and then I think Jake.
I just wanted to say one thing I think the chief said to us about Depot Street being kind of away from everybody else. So for a safety measure, was our concern just so far away in the evening, not a lot of people around. I like the depot location for sure, but that was a concern, yeah.
By the end of the time, by the time you get to the end of the sidewalk, or even with the grade of the concrete slab at the old depot anyway, you know, access for handicap accessibility is there, because it definitely cannot go over the railroad track, or, you know, even in that direction, it's a nightmare. All you have to do is walk a few feet further on the sidewalk and you're level with the slab of the building. So I mean, and the other end could have another one built on the other side where it's with the grade that's already existing.
Accessibility from the west side, from the bridge park, is not handicap accessibility. It's visual accessibility. That's what we would be working on, because we're not going to create, we couldn't, the railroad wouldn't let us do something.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So what we're doing is we're creating visible or visibility / accessibility, not handicap accessibility on the west end. It's more of a, here it is, and here's how you get up there without going around to the street.
Yep.
So let's not confuse accessibility with ADA compliance.
This is the sidewalk that runs down the side.
That one is, yeah, from the east it is, yeah.
Thank you, Odell. Did you?
My biggest thought, and it's, as much as what David said as well, and I don't even think it's an issue with, I think people who may need assistance getting to a restroom can get to the depot just fine. But if you're shopping on Main Street and you go down to the depot, it's getting fast to Main Street, that I would foresee a problem as far as accessibility goes. And my concern for locals or visitors is more of our pedestrian accessibility than vehicle accessibility, which is what I think we're saying when we don't want to close Spring Street, is that we want to make it accessible for cars. But I'm thinking Spring Street's a better location to make things accessible for pedestrians. You can drive down another street in a car. Someone may not be able to walk back up Spring Street to get to Main Street as easily as you can drive a street or the next down to access Main Street. So.
Thank you. I think everybody on the board has had a chance to comment. Thank you so much for your.
Yeah, thanks, Odell.
And I'm here for other
And-
questions, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to turn it over to Jake now if I can.
Thank y'all. I'm gonna talk about the three proposed locations, some pros and cons. Everything I'm gonna say is a fact. You're not gonna hear my opinion. For the Ritz lot, that idea has been floated. The sewer connections there would be so costly as to render that idea unfeasible. We'd have to do a connection underneath Main Street. The DOT requires 25 feet on either side of a new line to be milled and repaved. So aside from the engineering, the construction and installation of a sewer line extension down to around the Ritz lot, it currently terminates right at the bottom of Evelina Street. So we'd have to extend it down to the Ritz lot or get an easement through the Cogda lot and down and connect down at Hilda. Either of those things would double the cost of the project before we ever got started on the road. And for that reason, I think that site is absolutely a no-go. Spring Street is the most centrally located of the proposed locations. It does have the least accessibility issues from all directions. I'll add that you're not just coming to this restroom from Mill Street, you'll be coming from Main Street, you'll be coming from the Bridge Park. The town does own Spring Street. It's never going to be anything but a road or a bathroom. We're not competing with commercial property right there. The traffic study is still underway, and we'll review that data when we have all of it. The depot location is not as centrally located. It will make for a cheaper project. town would need to, a very, very solid lease agreement to build a permanent structure on property that we don't own. That isn't insurmountable, but it is something to consider. The slope and the railroad tracks make accessibility challenging. Like Odell said, you have current access to the old slab from Mill Street. From the western side, it's an absolute nightmare to get across those tracks. And if we're building a structure in 2022, it needs to be ADA accessible from 360 degrees. You'll notice there's a gigantic power box just adjacent that will very likely need to be relocated, and we don't have a cost on that yet from Duke. So those are the pros and cons of the 3 locations, just the facts. I'm going to take a minute now to speak about the traffic study. There's a ton of misinformation floating around about that as well. The portion of Spring Street between Mill and West Main was closed May 6th, and it will remain closed until May 31st. The second portion from West Main up the hill towards Jackson Street has and will remain open. This was done intentionally during a time interval when higher than normal traffic volumes could be included. Closure captures traffic volumes from WCU graduation, Mother's Day, and Memorial Day, as well as our routine daily traffic that we're all going to see. Like I said, this data is still coming in. Let's see, traffic counters have been placed on Landis Street during the interval that Spring Street is closed. When Spring Street reopens on the 31st, following Memorial Day, we're going to move those counters back to Spring Street for the same time interval. When all that data comes in, we'll know how many cars we displaced from Spring down to Landis. I do agree with Nicole. The left turn from Landis on to Mill is an issue that we're going to have to address. And that was, looking at this before we started, I saw that being a problem. All right, just for your information, there's 60 feet for traffic to queue on Spring Street while it's waiting on the red light. That does not include the turn lane. There's 100 feet for traffic to queue on Landis. There's approximately 85 feet of turn lane from Mill on the Spring, and there's approximately 110 feet of turn lane from Mill on to Landis. One possible area of conflict is vehicles turning left. And that definitely will need to be addressed, and the lights will need to be retimed depending on what decision is made here. But those are the facts.
What about sewer water infrastructure underneath the Spring Street? You know anything more about?
Sewer and water won't be a big challenge. The big unknown is, well, it's not unknown. We know the storm is directly underneath the proposed building location there on Spring. Relocation is not impossible, but it will be expensive.
So it would be, as far as infrastructure, sewer, water, it would be cheaper to do depot than to Spring. Is that, would you say, or do you want to get back to us, or?
I'll have to get back. See, I couldn't definitively, so we don't have a cost on, one, if we're going to have to move the storm yet, or two, what that would look like.
And is that foundation there where the depot is? I mean, is that sound? Will that not need to be reworked?
I wouldn't hate to build a structure on it without knowing for sure. It's possible. There's much less site work is needed at the Depot Street for sure. The sewer and water connections, 6 of one, half a dozen of another with either of the 2 locations. Moving the power is going to be problematic there. The looming issue on Spring is the storm. The looming issue at the depot is the power.
And have we talked to the railroad? When you talk to the railroad, did we ever pursue, see if they would sell us that little bit there?
We didn't pursue an outright transfer. We just pursued a lease, and they were fine with it. They just wanted to see a footprint before we decided to move forward.
I've asked them several times in the past if the town could buy that, and the answer has always been no.
Okay. How long, once we get our bathroom on it?
I just like to, Jake, question. So I guess, is there a way to make that term safer without, but I don't want us to end up having to close half of Landis at some point. But is there a way that you foresee being able to make that safer?
without closing that half of Landis, putting up and forbidding commercial traffic on that downside of Landis, which is, I mean, that's pretty difficult.
It's the building you can't see around or something to turn onto Mill.
But if you could make a left off Shulman, that would help.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was in traffic the other day and there was an ambulance behind me. It was very difficult for that thing to get through. Yes. Because nobody could pull off.
Because Spring Street was closed or just because there was a lot of traffic?
Because the light at Grindstaff, there's 50 cars behind. I'm sitting at the mural and there's an ambulance coming.
Right.
That was an issue before.
Where are the?
Yeah.
But if we close off that little bump out, you can't pull off to let anybody through.
Right. The reason those water barricades are out as far as that, excuse me, is because I didn't want somebody turning into the turn lane, saying, oh, I can't turn right here, and then trying to merge back into Mill Street traffic.
That makes sense. I'm just saying 50 cars back is a traffic.
Yeah, but they weren't back 50 deep because of Spring Street. That has a way up.
Because there was so much traffic that Grindstaff's light was there and it would just back up and back up and back up. I could see it from my window.
It's always
But yeah,
It doesn't.
I was on Mill Street, my business was on Mill Street, like we saw it backed up, tires screeching all the time from people stopping. I don't think that that's new because of Spring Street, like we see traffic backed up before.
Well,
closing.
but before the cars could bail on Spring.
Yeah.
So now
You have
they
the
have to
local
get down to the
traffic
next.
Well, they can,
Can't bail.
currently they can bail down to Railroad, take Allen to Railroad Avenue, or Allen up by Town Hall right here too. So there is an out there, they're aware.
And I just think that's a really good point about, all of the elderly people living up in that neighborhood. Emergency response taking, 3 more minutes. Maybe Ben could weigh in on what that could do to save somebody's life. I don't know.
I have another question for you, Jake, as well. So would it be safe to say that, we'll get a good idea from the traffic study, but we may see some relief on traffic with the change of lights if it were to become final?
Sure,
Those things will be
that could
retimed.
absolutely be tweaked, and we made the request for the DOT to change that timing, but they'll do that on their own time.
And
So,
then, of course, with the future 107 project, that would help traffic as well, right? All of it trickles down, right?
I'm not following you on the 107.
I mean, the purpose of that project is to help move traffic through town better. I would think that would translate down in the future. Correct. I know that, but the traffic still comes from 107 through downtown Silva.
I think it's more for 23 traffic kind of coming down. That's where it's really going to make a difference. The traffic coming down 23 going that way, it never comes down.
Okay, but still with the traffic lights. It would help.
Yeah, the retiming the lights will absolutely help.
Okay. One more question. This is just a restroom plan update, so we'll have more discussion at another day, but go ahead, Jeffrey.
But just a quick question about the traffic study. It sounds like you only have one counter on Landis.
That's correct. Well, we have them directionally in both
Okay.
lanes, yeah.
I just wondered that with spring closed, people may see the back of Atlantis and go ahead to Schulman, or they may go all the way to the fountain and then go up Keener.
That's what I'm doing.
So I'm wondering if maybe you could expand that, or if there's time to put a counter either on Schulman or up by the fountain, just where the beginning of Keener is, to see if people are actually doing that to avoid all the lights and then going down Jackson.
We have one counter that we borrowed from the Southwestern Commission RPO. I understand that having all of a bunch more would certainly be ideal. I would be, if they're willing to loan it to us, I'd be willing to put it wherever we need it to get.
I mean, the largest impact is Atlanta, so
Yeah.
that's
Right.
that's the place to measure.
The more data points we could get, the better. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I just want to say thanks, because this is like a big deal. This is a huge thing on you, and I know you're probably, and you're getting all kinds of feedback, and you're getting torn over different places. So I just want to say thank you for doing this, and it's appreciated.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Judge. Okay, stay tuned for further developments, is all I can say when we have our next discussion. We have an item that we need to add to our agenda. We need to add the fire department as item number 8. A discussion of that. Do I have a motion to do that?
I'll make that motion.
All right, any discussion? Then all those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All right, so that will be agenda item number 8. All right, next, did we lose?
I think you just stepped up with that.
Yes, actually, I believe.
Oh, no, we didn't. Okay. Maybe, I'm sorry about that. We can schedule.
Yeah. We lost Nick.
We lost this.
Is it okay if we reschedule the TDA presentation to a date that works for Nick?
Sure. Yeah.
And you
Yes,
contact these?
we'll put that on the future agenda.
Do we need to make a motion to take that off of today's agenda?
I don't think so.
And when she tells us the date, that we don't know a date yet. All right, so you will let us know when you talk to Nick. Thank you. And I apologize to Nick. We've just had many discussions tonight, so. Next on our new business is to schedule the board retreat for June 2nd. Paige, do you want to?
Yes, so this would be at the Green Room and the Bardo Center at Western, starting at 8:30. And it would be facilitated by Margaret Henderson from the School of Government and wrap up around 3 o'clock.
All right, 8:30 to 3 o'clock on June 2nd, a board retreat.
And please understand the town hall will need to be closed that day.
So
And that will be at the,
Green Room at Bardo.
So is this falling in this budget? So is this line item that we're adding? Or
No, we had budgeted some of the cost of the retreat, and then the consent agenda included a transfer from contingency for the remainder.
and so that amount was substantial.
The entire retreat is cost, well, for the facilitators piece was $5,400.
Were you guys aware that it would cost that much?
I knew that the School of Government, when they do these sessions, it was, they're professionals.
Okay, and we're worth it?
well, seeing if we haven't had one of these, like, yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a motion to schedule that board retreat? Okay. Any further discussion? And all those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
The green room is free
Yes. Good. And
and
thank you
we'll be on the
to,
live stream.
yes, and thank you to Greg for getting that arranged for us. That's a very nice space.
Well, we don't know that we can live stream. I mean, it might be capable from there, but we don't know that we can do it.
Oh, but you don't know if you can log in from that feed. Or not on it. Well, we can work it out. You need to come early and look at it or.
Okay. Next on our agenda is concerts on the creek. I think that's you, Nicole, request for alcohol sales.
So Nicole has submitted a request that to sell alcohol at several of the concerts on the creek. And that was included in my manager's report. When the board approved alcohol on public property, the stipulation in our ordinance was that the board would give approval for each event. So Nicole, for Innovation Brewing, has requested 10 dates, and this would be a similar setup to the beverage arts area we had at Greening at the Mountains. So if the board approves it, staff can sign off on the form and collect the fee per concert.
Well, this doesn't mean you would be the only. It's just
Anybody else wants to apply, they can do so.
I mean,
But
I'm
it
not
just,
gonna round up the
didn't we have
troops.
something that said we only had one beer vendor or something like that?
So what we do on food is approve one food truck for a regular concert because they've told us they can only be profitable if there's one with the size of the crowd. So I think we would need to start that way with beer also to see if they have really long lines, you can give us that feedback and.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to other people being there.
No, I think it's a more than merrier, really.
yeah, I think multiple. I would rather allow multiple, and if it's an issue, no one's making money stuff, nothing, stick it back to one. As opposed to starting off and only allowing the first one who applies.
I think said we need to think about that food truck one too, because
Competition.
Well, that's feedback from the food vendors.
Right.
That's not a rule.
A wild crowd over there. I bet they drink one week. I think they can allow a few more.
It's on the food truck, whether people like it or not. Yeah.
I motion that we approve this concerts on the creek request for alcohol sales.
All right. Any further discussion of that?
I know how this will go, but I just want to voice that the concerts on the creek are paid for by tax dollars, so I don't feel. That's all.
And are these specifically the ones paid for by the?
They're not, they're only the chamber seats.
chamber.
So they're actually paid for by the chamber.
So tourism tax dollars.
Some are county sponsored. Because I think we each have 5 dates this year.
Any other comment? Then all those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Four for it and one opposed. All right, thank you. Next is the formal presentation of the budget.
Yes. Okay. So I sent you all the proposed budget for the fiscal year 22-23. The general fund budget totaling $5,847,875 is an increase of $326,303 from or 29% from the original 21-22 budget. And not including grants and other proceeds, the total is $4,151,036, which is an increase of $390,250 or 10.38% from the 21-22 budget. So currently our estimated unassigned fund balance is around $3.5 million. And with our target goal is 75%. As of June 30th, 2021, it would be 71%. With the approval of this current budget, it drops it to 54.9%. The main reason for this is the increase in 11 personnel at the fire department that we have requested Jackson County paid for. This budget also includes an additional employee in Public Works, a vehicle in Public Works, two patrol vehicles to keep up with our replacement schedule. It implements the salary study, our Municode recodification, and several other items. The board discussed a $10,000 skate park ramp and allows us to continue operating at the current level and providing services to the citizens. So we have a public hearing on this scheduled for May the 26th at 5:30. And then the budget would be adopted June the 9th at 5:30. It will be posted on our website.
All right. So thank you for that presentation. There's no votes or anything that we have to do on that.
Oh, and the tax rate remains unchanged.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear. Next on our agenda is the audit contract. Can you give us an update on?
Yes, so this contract is for the upcoming fiscal year from Burleson and Early and needs to be approved by the board. The audit fee is $19,200.
We have the audit contract. Do I hear a motion that we accept that?
Is there a discussion? Or question?
Let's do the motion
Motion
first.
accepted. Oh, yeah, right.
Even made it? They did, okay. We have a motion. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, a question, has it changed the cost, has that changed from last year?
It's had a slight increase. When we redid it last year, this was the low bidder.
Okay. That's all, thanks.
Okay. So if hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of accepting this contract, signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
All approved. Next on our agenda is the acceptance of the pay study. We heard that discussion in our budget workshops tonight. Do I hear a motion to accept that pay study?
I'll make that motion.
All right, any discussion?
I will read it. So. And her.
Hearing no discussion, would ask from Ben made the motion, yes. Then all those in favor of accepting the pay study signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Hi. Hi.
All right.
All right. Next on our agenda is the fire department. The page if you'll.
Yes, so Mike would like to address the board.
What I'd like to ask y'all is to reconsider I guess you shall have consent vote we had a little earlier today. Reason I'm asking that is because we've been working on this for a long time, 3 years. And to us, eight's acceptable because it will help us with our response times and things like that. Now, obviously, we want 11. We'd like to have 11, but that's the decision above me. And basically, the county will decide, I think around the 1st of June, like they told us yesterday, what they would fund, and we would accept 8 ourselves. And it would definitely help us. That's why I wish y'all would reconsider vote, yeah, or not, I guess it was a vote, a consent, I guess I'll call it a vote, but it's a consent vote. But like I say, we put a lot of work into it, and it's county money anyway. And
Well, maybe since you're here, you can answer some of our questions.
I'll be glad to.
So the study recommended the 11 option, and it seemed concerning even at the 11 option that it felt understaffed still. Are you comfortable that at 8, even lower than the consultant's recommendation, that's a safe and adequate level? And given that your call volume is constantly increasing, how long can you maintain that level?
At 8?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question. That's something nobody really knows, but yes, we would be confident with that because it would help us with our response. Our response time is like we were talking about earlier. It's all about getting the truck out the door. And if we have to come from home to get the truck versus somebody already there. It's also with first responder medical calls, somebody's having a heart attack, something like that, overdose, which we'll get more and more into that. I think everybody knows that. It's all about response time. And by having them there, they get rolling faster and get to the scene faster, which, I mean, it can make a difference in an overdose or a heart attack. I think Dr. Guinea would agree with that. And that's what we're about. We're trying to increase, get our response times down. And yes, call volume really high. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head this year, but it's like 375 to 380 right now since first year. Used to 1995, for example, I remember that year, 255 all year.
So, oh, can I speak? Did anybody else? Yeah, so I think, Mike, that was the thing, and I think that's what David's saying, it's like, we really want, 11, it seems like, yeah, exactly. And I think, I don't know how much of the discussion you caught, if you're able to watch on YouTube or whatever. Our biggest concern is the funding from the county, and that it's always going to be there. And the fact that if all of a sudden the county says we're going to fund it this year, and then then they get new commissioners and then say, no, SYLVA should pay for their own thing. We can't pay for it. We can't shoulder that cost. Yeah. And so that's where we're coming from. And so I think from my impression, the board is very supportive of the proposal, but we don't have the ability. We don't feel comfortable with the funding, and that's why we kind of backed off.
Wow.
And because we don't have any real commitment from for long-term funding from the county, and is there a better way to fund it? And that's what David was bringing up. Is there a better, is there a better structure for this whole thing?
Well, that was all research by Paige and Mr. Adams with the county about tax districts and that kind of thing. But there again, we're all citizens of the county, no matter whether you live in Silver or not.
Yeah.
And that's how they're looking at it. And so they're intending to fund it. They're funding Cullowhee, and they have a tax district in Cassius. Now that's a different animal because they got a lot more valuable property up there. And so what they're trying to do is to fund us to help Cullowhee and all the outlying county departments. So they're funding us basically as a county department. So I don't feel like the funding would ever go away. Not once they get in place.
If that, right, so that's
That's
the
fine.
feeling, but I think the board, I felt like we need more of a guarantee rather than just feeling like it, because.
Well, I think there will be in the end when we get there. We're not, see, they haven't actually voted to fund it yet.
Right, and so that's what we were kind of backing up. What we were saying is just table it until we can really hammer out the funding and get a guarantee. Yeah.
And I think we were worried about yours and Mallory's job if we ask them to do that and then they decide not to, so.
Our job does go away, and we know that. We're good with that. But it will be rolled over into the county fund. So we still have a job and it's job. But
We just want to make sure that is the case, because the process that we're looking at right now is a little bit wonky. Because we want to pass our budget, so we have to wait. So there's an unknown there that we're like.
I wish I could tell you they're gonna pass it for sure. I got a good feeling they are, talking to the commissioners individually. But, it's still a board and it's still a vote. So I can't guarantee that.
Are you still asking them for the 11 or are you just?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, we did Tuesday.
My biggest concern is that we rush them into this decision and hastily work out the details and end up with a product that, if we had waited a year and planned it better, would be more sustainable in the long term.
Well, like I say, we've been planning for 3 years.
Right, but the town commissioners and the county commissioners started in January.
Actually, they started 3 years ago.
The county?
Yeah.
I guess the town didn't start. a little bit.
Well, that's what I say, we didn't bring y'all on board, we felt like it was actually gonna happen.
Right, but
Because it's county money.
But it's county money, but it's the town's responsibility to maintain and ensure that the fire department, it's an essential service and that it is sustainable. And one of the issues with the setup is the responsibility falls on us, funding falls on the county. And that's that's a fragile relationship.
Let me give you a little history on that. how the building got built. This is kind of the same type of deal we're doing. The county, of course, the town at the time borrowed the money, the county makes the payment. And that was the agreement they had, they're still doing it. I think it's last year, goes to it, it's this year, next year, the building thing.
Yes, close.
I don't know if it's this year, next year, but anyway. So that money's gonna go into this program too. That's how we did that, and it's more or less the same thing. We're gonna give you all the money to pay the fire. I'd say we've been doing that since 2009, hadn't had any problems.
But hadn't I heard earlier, one of the commissioner candidates had mentioned that the town of Sylva should really be paying for its own fire department and not the county? Isn't that someone, I mean, that's all we need is someone like that.
I'm sure these people feel that.
Well, I'm saying, but if they, all of a sudden, they take office and they vote, and then they say, sorry, we're not paying for it anymore, it just explodes our budget and to a point where we would have to tax all of us up here, like a lot in order to, and that would be, and that's just this uncertain thing. And that's what we're coming from. We just want to we want to hold the county, to this and have something real guarantees that moving forward in the future, for whoever knows how long, that our Sylva Fire Department is going to be funded.
Yeah.
And if we allow this 8, which is below the recommended level.
Well, it's in that recommendation, too, 8 years.
It was one of the options.
Yeah, it's on the option.
One of the options, but not the recommended option, is that how do we get, with increasing call volume, how do we get the county to increase that without them saying, if you want more, you got to pay for it? I think we need to, if we want to make this change this year, and I still think we need to guarantee that this arrangement is set up in a sustainable manner, but that we get what we need a few years down the road, not what we just need right now at this moment, because call volume increases. And it's it's a fragile relationship, how we're doing that. But it's also, it seems to be on the margins of the minimum necessary.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go blow up, so.
Mike, when you have these conversations with them, did they talk about a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year contract or any?
Well, you already have a contract with them. You have a contract with them now for the fire department to run out in the county. And they're funded, the fund part of it. So that's already there.
Is that contract a year-to-year contract or?
I think you know what you gotta do 6 months in advance to do away with it, basically goes forever.
I don't know that there would need to be more of an agreement about.
We'll have to work this into it, yes.
That's what we're saying, but we can't do that between now and 6 weeks.
I think we can,
Yeah.
because the reason I think that is because, like I said, I've been talking to those people individually too. And what we could do is, once they approve the money, then we'll have to work that into the county contract, which, I don't really think.
Yeah, we could do that. But we have to get, we can't do our budget until that,
I don't like that either, but I mean, it's.
Let's say we get funded for 11 for a year and then the next county commissioners don't. I mean, where does that put you? Where does that put your department?
Puts us in laying people out for gas.
Yeah. I mean, is that crossed your radar?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I understand, it's politics. I don't know that. Depends on who's up there and everything else, but we've had a contract with them under over 100 years. I mean, so I don't really think they're gonna do that because of the people out in the county not gonna like it very much either, because they're gonna lose their fire rate and their insurance.
Yeah.
So they're kind of hooked anyway because of that. And so I believe they're gonna do it. I mean, I trust them because I've talked to all of them individually.
So you want us to proceed 8 or 11 either way?
Yes,
You want
I
us
would
to
like
proceed?
to, because I feel like if we get started, then in future times, like David's talking about, things pick up, we're gonna pick up all through the county. And there's been some discussions about funding other fire departments besides us.
Yeah.
Like Swan, Boston, those. And at one point, somewhere in the future, that's probably gonna happen. And by funding us now, that helps them also because we're mutual aid to everybody and we're in the middle. And that's the other reason I don't think we're going back out. And by doing that, then that helps everybody's insurance rate through the county. Because we worked really hard over the last 10 years to get it down to the point it is, which is class 5, basically where you go in the county. That took a lot of work for a long time. And the commissioners have been involved in that, the county commission. And
That's the insurance rate that people pay on your house insurance.
And so that's out of the county too. And that's why I don't feel like they're ever gonna pull the funding, because if they do, I'm not gonna like that much, and the insurance goes that way, you know. And because they've been in this game for a long time too.
So with 8, the report mentions, I mean, your crew will be working 24/48.
Right.
And it mentions that is a very stressful schedule.
It's more stressful than 24/7 too.
Right.
I
And
agree with that.
do you really foresee, I mean, it sounds like you already need 11. I mean, the report makes that clear. Why do we want to rush ahead with 8 if we can try to get 11?
Because I feel like we should accept what they would give us right now. So we can get started, and then like I was just saying, in the future, when Callaway keeps going up, then they'll probably start funding Callaway more, us more, and then they may start funding some of the outline department and increasing the staff. But you got to start somewhere, and that's kind of what I'm looking at here. And we're pretty far into it now to back out. And we set it up on the timeline. Paige will agree with this, where it can happen July 1st. And Don Adams with the county's been pushing that too, also Brian, chairman. And that's where we are. So I feel like we, do what they say anyway, and then if they don't like it at that point, we bail, I guess, but.
So if they do 8, what pressure is that gonna put on you? And
Personally.
well, all of
All of us, but it's be working around the clock 24 hours a day, which we're gonna be
Well,
anyway.
that's what it was gonna be, but
Yeah,
for how many days in a row?
you'd work one, and then you'd be out 2 days.
2 days.
They do that in a lot of departments. That's a common schedule, actually. That's more common than 24/7 too. Totally right now, for example, is working 48/96. They work 2 days in a row. Then they're out 4 days. They go in and work straight 48 hours. I don't know about that so much, but.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't take less than 11. I'm still on that boat.
Can you remind me how many volunteers you currently have on?
33, it's on the roster.
And then about how many that are like continuously active or showing?
I couldn't,
You said, I know that when we spoke before, you had said that there was like a certain number, you have like 33, but then there's the ones that consistent.
well, I can tell you something off the top of my head. I can't tell you exact numbers. As far as call attendance, we do a chart on that every month. There's 5 people on the roster. It's over 100 calls since first year, and we're talking about 380 or 90. So, yeah, they're not exactly what you say, real active. And that's the reason for this. That's why I'm willing to accept the 8. We can make it work. And then we can go with in the future, see what happens in the future. And this is a starting point, and that's the way I'm looking at it. And then we'll keep building on it. But if we don't start, we can't build. And that's how I'm looking at it. I've done a long time.
Well, I'm glad you came. I'm glad to hear that you've been talking with the chairman and he's on board with the plan and stuff that we are completely in the dark about.
Well,
which
that
is
maybe we should
interesting
take it
because
more.
it's our building over there, so.
Right. I guess that's my fault that I haven't been kept you more informed, but
Yeah, maybe a little bit more, communication, because you're asking us to make a huge leap of faith here.
I understand.
And to hear anecdotes like that are helpful to me to know that it's not such a huge deal.
That's what I said. I didn't walk in with all the paperwork prior to tonight, so I can't really give you numbers, but I can out there, they're on the wall. And
we just want to be good stewards of our.
well, most of our members to answer now this question is less than 50 copies since first year out of that 380. So there's a few of us that a whole lot, is what I'm saying. But we're looking at getting the trucks and the medical responders to the scenes faster, and that's the main thing. I mean, yeah, somebody has to come them off, get the truck out the door and then go to the cow.
Do you foresee some of your most active volunteers becoming employees?
That's the plan,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I think, my personal feeling is we're gonna hire them off our roster if we can, the 8 or whatever we get.
Yeah, that was a question. Yeah, do you think you would have, 8 or 11 volunteers that would become full-time firemen,
Yes,
fire folks?
yes, I
Fire
do.
responders?
In fact, we got one volunteer now that's working on the pay department app. We're more than happy to come back here. And so, but there's no job here for him right now,
But I think the other thing too that came up in our discussion is like, we've had, there's like 2 separate things going on here. There's the county and the town. But we haven't really heard from the county commissioners. It's great, you keep it, but like, that's what I feel like we need we all felt that we needed to actually hear more from the county commissioners as well, but for their commitment to this, rather than secondhand or whatever.
Probably the reason we haven't, is remember back, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 months ago, you authorized me to try to make a deal, and I guess they figured working with the representative of the town. So I guess it's my fault I haven't came here and told you a little more. Of course, Paige has been with me every time we went to meetings. And it's been pretty positive. We've had a couple of things that are.
Well, I mean, I don't think, yeah, but I think this current county commission would fund this. I don't think, that's my feeling that they would fund this. And I think, but again, what we talked about earlier is like, what about 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what kind of guarantees going down the road would there be? Because the town of Sylva could never be in a position where we could take on the fire department. So that's where, and that's why we were like, hey, maybe we need to, rethink this long-term thing. And that's where our whole, like, let's slow down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. It's like I was telling them, go, if they jerk the funding on us, well, what would we have to do? I know that. I don't want to go there, but you give somebody a job, you like to keep them, but.
Yeah. But in an essential service, I feel like there should be a way to find some kind of, permanent solution for funding.
Of course, we've all, the ones that's going to accept those jobs know that. It's not a secret out there. And, that could be contingent on the county funding.
Yeah, but then it's not about, the individuals. It's really about, our responsibility as a town board to keep our town and our town budget and our taxpayers. Yeah.
Right.
So are you asking from us to approve 8, or do you think if you go to the county and you're asking for 11, they'll say, no, we're not going to do 11, but we'll approve 8. But if we have a motion to approve 8, then they're not going to go to 11.
Well, I don't want it that way. I want a little negotiation plan. That's what I'm getting at. I wouldn't want to say we're going to approve 8, not right out of the box.
See, that was one of our issues tonight.
See, I mean, like, I don't think anyone's disputing the need that we need to transition to full-time fire department. But you're asking us to accept a level of staffing that's below the recommended level, and that's worrisome. And and if we want to make this change this year, which I think is rushed, but it sounds like that's sort of where we're leaning, or most of the board is leaning. I think we need to ask for 11 because that is the proper staff.
I'm not going to quit asking for 11, but like I said, we need,
say yes.
there's a possibility we may get 10. There's a possibility we may get 9. What I'm asking for is some negotiation. We started at 14. That's where we all started at. And now we were 11 on the recommendation of the consultant. And I kind of agree with him. Like I say, I've been in this a long time. I've been doing it 4 years. So I understand too. And I also understand where y'all are. I've been coming to these board meetings for a long time, with various boards. And so I know what financial shape the town's improvements too. And I am a town resident and I understand the tax too. I pay them too, just like you do. And I don't want to run them outside either. And that's why I'm trying to do the deal with the county. And they that we've discussed fire districts for since 2004. And the individual fire districts. That's a problem, and the reason it is, and the county knows it is, and that's why they're willing to do this, is because of the outlying departments like Savannah and Boston, to name a couple of candidates, another. They don't have the property value to fund the fire department. And so the county decided, and what they're talking about now is to fund out of the county general fund, the fire department, which is what they did with Colway, and which is what they're talking about doing with us. And that was the other thing was, like over in Boston district, for example, you'd have to run that fire tax to the absolute max, which is 15 cents a hundred. And put that on fixed income people. Well, they don't do that. Nobody wants to do that. And so that's why they're going the way they're going. And like I said, this has been a discussion that's been going on for a long time. That's 2004. I can show you another time we met on it. Had some discussions and some working out different problems with it. 2014, 2016. It's never worked out. Because it always comes back the same thing. You're taxing those fixed income people out in the outlying parts of the county. Way too much money when you do that. And that's why they're going the way they're going. And that's why I don't think they're full fund.
And the county has this much money to,
This would be a tax increase.
Yeah,
so they will have to increase. the
yeah,
taxes.
it's what was it, 0.75%, something like that. It was what was it, one,
I was thinking it was
just for our
a
part,
little bit, maybe like, I don't.
our part, I think it was 3/4. They're gonna do it anyway. They're gonna raise the tax. But they're trying to fund criminal catchers to the rescue squad in this same program.
So
And they're wanting $4 million.
I would entertain a motion that we go with the formal presentation of the budget that included the funding for 11 at the fire department, and that's what's in our budget. Is that correct, Paige?
That's what's in the budget.
And based on what Mike has told us about the funding and everything. So do I have a motion for that?
What do we motion?
We just needed to give you direction, so.
Yes, we really need direction on, are you willing to do the personnel regardless of what level it is?
Right, I'm still a no, I'm still 11. I think it's that's what was recommended.
I don't want to go below 8. So. I don't vote, so. But that's what I'm thinking. Like I say, I've been doing.
So currently we're at 11. I guess you're asking, is there a majority of the board that wants to reduce that to 8 or 10 or 9? Or whatnot?
Accept whatever they.
Or accept whatever.
I wouldn't want to accept low 8. I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, 11, and like, right, I mean, like, they're committed to our funding our fire department, then they should, we're gonna tell them we need 11. And that's it. And if they can fund 11, if they balk, then that's actually kind of a red flag, in a couple of years, they're gonna be like, nah, we're gonna do, 2 or whatever, so.
But you have good reason to think that they
I
are.
think we're good.
But well, anyways, I don't think we should go below 11. That's fine. That's fine. Is that are we voting on or?
We don't have to
motioning on it,
vote,
or-
we're just
I
gonna
just-
give
I'd
direction.
like to say I'd like some negotiation. Right? Don't lock me into 11.
I think that if you did have 8, then you would make it work. I have faith that you would make it.
It'll work. It'll work, or I wouldn't be standing here right now.
And I do have a thing about people working for the town of Sylva and not being happy in their jobs. So I think that's what David's getting at. It's like, what's the quality of life of it is to cover all those shifts. Some of those numbers from the study, but I think they will do it.
It's going up too. I mean, it's going up every year. It's going up. So before we get 8, all of a sudden we're already gonna be behind. And I think that's what David's saying too. It's like even 11.
Looks like we're behind with 11.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I say, I'd like to have a starting point. That's a starting point tonight. And because if you just say 11 and they might not do it, and then we're done. And so I'd like to start with 8 if that's what we get. and you build on that. Can't build on it if you don't start. That's what I'm asking for. Gonna have a little negotiation in my side. Most of the other fire departments already work for 24/48. We were gonna go to 24/7, two reasons. One was it's a better schedule. The second one is it will cut down on our overtime. If we go with 24/48, then they get billed in overtime. Of course, they make more money. That's the good part of it to the employee.
And we're busier than Coley, right?
We're busy in the department.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like when you're on, it's like one thing to be on and you're sleeping for 24 hours. It's a whole other thing if you're getting calls all the time. That's,
We let Paige speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You all, what you need to do right now is decide to whether to accept the level of funding, regardless of what it is, and then we try to figure it out. I mean, as far as the agreement or the number that'll fund, but we need to know if you all want to move forward with pay department, with the funding, regardless of what the amount that it is, or ends up being.
Like I say, we gotta have a starting point. And to me, that's a start point. If we lock it in to 11, if for some reason they don't give it, then we're basically turning down the money they are going to give us. And so we have no starting point. And yes, I know it would be a hard schedule, but I also, like I told you, there is one guy right now currently works on Gainesville, Georgia, fire department. As a volunteer network for 24/48. He's happy. He is there.
I mean, how
That
do their numbers, their calls compare to our calls?
Oh, it ain't close. You're putting the department down there, it's like 100 some employees.
Well, you know what
10,000
I'm getting at,
plus.
though. Yeah, but because it's, depending on how many calls you get, a 24 or 48-hour shift can be,
Right.
watch TV and sleeping or just.
Well, it's the way it works now. Some days,
Okay, we need to
Okay.
move forward.
Yes,
Okay.
what's the pleasure of the board? Can we get a,
I'm just trying to get background information.
I'm okay with it.
Mike is the professional in this industry, so I'm supporting Mike.
Well, now you'll live. Well, okay, it's tough. I'm pretty uneasy about this, but we still have a final say in this too, right? If all of a sudden, we have to take whatever if they come back, if they negotiate really tough and they say 5, we're only gonna give you fund 5.
I wouldn't
Have to accept
I
that?
wouldn't accept that.
So you're saying you will not accept.
I'll be the one talking and I wouldn't accept that.
That's what I'm getting at too.
Approve the budget, but not the number.
right?
And I want to point out that one of the county commissioners, the chair, is a fireman, so
No, I
think
know.
he's got like.
I am not worried about this year. I am worried about future, but at any rate, so
But there would be an agreement that comes to you all.
there's still more to it. This isn't, we're not stuck with whatever they give us.
So you are kind
Approve
of
the
stuck with
funding.
what they give you for this year,
Right.
with the dollar amount and with the budget.
But they haven't even discussed being overnight. They haven't even discussed that.
Yeah,
I will say that.
yeah. It just feels like we're stumbling into something here that is a huge, huge deal. And I know you've done a ton of work in the background. That's what gives me pause though. It's just, yeah.
So if you want me
We
to
can come back
do
to-
we'll come back to you.
Yeah, okay.
already said
Maybe it won't matter.
I already said yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I think what Mike telling us that he wants us to move forward. I just hope that the current and future commissioner board will look out for the people.
okay,
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna stick with 11.
okay, so
And then.
3 to 2. All right, so you and Paige will work out whatever the funding, whatever the numbers are, but from 8, I hope.
I would hope that.
But tell them, I hope, you'll pass along that the board, the Silver Town Board strongly favored 11, but is giving you,
I made that clear.
yeah.
But then they're like y'all, they don't want to increase taxes and they have to either. I understand.
And thanks, Mike, for coming in
Yeah.
and giving us some
Well, thank you.
explanations.
Thanks for you y'all were hearing me out. I didn't even know what was gonna be talked about right away. I actually was on the yard.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that's the final item in our new business. I would
Entertain
a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.